All right, guys, welcome to chapter 9. Well, let me rephrase that. Welcome to chapter 4. This is the last part of chapter 4, which will be chapter 9, digital forensics analysis and investigation. So this is going to be a little bit more of a how we do it, why we do it kind of deal, and the tools, etc., etc., etc. So let's go through the objectives right now. Determine what data to analyze in a digital forensic investigation. So you need to figure out what you need to search through. Remember, I talked about accounting books. I bring up accounting because generally, if I talk about money, that sounds a little weird, right? Talking about money in a computer class, you kind of relate to a little bit more because there's more value in money, if that makes some sense. And sometimes you deal with those kinds of crimes more than anything. It's not always a murder. It's not always a child pornography ring. It's not always a fraud case. It doesn't involve money. Usually, 9 times out of 10, what you deal with is money. Money issues, money stolen, money moved. That usually falls under the Secret Service. So technically, it's counterfeit, but that's a little further down the pipeline. But anyways, we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna explain what tools are used and to validate data. We probably will have a lab on that. I just still got to figure that out. It's only Tuesday, so you guys are seeing this. I don't know, Sunday. If you're watching it Sunday, cool. Monday of next week, Tuesday next week. So probably a week from now. But I'm sure by the time you see this, the lab's already be there. I would have made up my mind to it. Anyway, this is just me free thinking. It's been another really gut punching day at work today. If you guys are curious about what I did today for help us a little bit. I know I'm trailing off and I apologize, but it's been a lot of email migration issues and it's just nonstop. And then we have a giant printing department. You know how your school prints flyers, announcements that are printed, posted on pinboards and stuff, or pamphlets and things. We have one of those where I work at Santa College, and they went ahead and decided to replace all their gigantic new copiers. And these things are like, my garage is like 10 foot by like 10 foot roughly. It's a little bigger. It's like an alcove pushed in. That's my office. It's literally, these machines are about 5 feet long, maybe 6 feet, but they spit out tons of copies. So it's been dealing with a lot of that, talking to Canon back and forth, being barely able to take lunch, and this week's putting me through the ringer. So if I sound a little tired or out of it, that's why. So don't worry. So let me segue back into this. That's a little bit about my day. Hopefully, your guys' day is going a lot better than mine is whenever you guys watch this. So we're also going to talk about common data hiding techniques, which we kind of mentioned in the previous one, which was image injection. That was just images, though. There'll be other ways to do things, or criminal strategies. So determining what data to collect and analyze, examining and analyzing data, digital evidence, investigations, depend on the nature of the investigation. Yeah. So what you're looking at, it depends on the kind of evidence you have, digital evidence that you have, and the nature of the investigation. It just depends what you're looking for. And the amount of data to process. Remember, it's not going to be a flash drive. It's microserver when it shows up. Oh, it does. That's freaking sweet. So, I mean, it can be one of these. It can be 20 of these. It can be 1,000 of these. It can be, I don't know, petabyte of data. Go make a cup of coffee and have a couple sandwiches. You're going to be there, leaving it running for a while. It's again, this stuff isn't instant. We use smaller files for this in class because I'm not going to give you guys a 30 gig file. At least I hope none of the images that I have from the publisher that I was given for data and labs that we do are that big. Hopefully not bigger than that. But my whole point is in the real world, it's a lot bigger than what we deal with. So scope creep, when an investigation expands beyond the original description. Yeah. That's even happens at work, depending where you work. It's called job creep. Same thing. Sometimes you're working on something, but then it gets bigger than what you expected. That's essentially what scope creep is, because of an unexpected device found, scope creep. Attorneys may ask investigators to examine other areas to recover more evidence. That's scope creep. They're like, hey, an attorney finds something that might be relevant. They have it on a flash drive here, or the flash drive they found from wherever for this crime where it was committed. It's related to it. Excuse me. It gets 2 days evidence late. You look into it. Increase the time and resources needed to extract, analyze, and present evidence. I want to say data, though. Evidence, data can be interchangeable, but if it's a crime, it's evidence. Data is after data has been processed, even though they're the same word. So don't ask me why. I don't make up these rules. I just go with them. So scope creep has become more common. Criminal investigations require more detailed examination of evidence just before trial. You might be working up until like the day or the night before, or even the morning of the trials, like let's say at noon. You'll be working till 8 a.m. to turn everything in and walk it over across, or drive it over, or send it over, however they do it. Maybe it's on a wide area network that's called a WAN, and they can pull it from a repository you guys have that you only share when you put evidence in for specific things are shared to only specific people, that kind of thing. Maybe it goes to the DA's office. I don't know. It just depends how crazy these crimes are. And I have my hand behind my back because I have a bad disc, so I just pushed myself a little. So if I'm a little low, I apologize. To help prosecutors fend off attacks from defense attorneys. Yeah, they keep you working to the last minute for that reason. New evidence often isn't revealed to prosecution. It becomes more important for prosecution teams to ensure they have analyzed the evidence exhaustively before trial. Well, that's up to them. That's up to you. I mean, you do need to provide it so they can look at it. But if you find something like 5 minutes before trial, you can't exactly say, "Here, review this." The next 3 seconds. They might have to wait for a second hearing or whatever, and then you give it to them, or after the trial, so they can add it in, and then that's how it goes. All right, so approaching detailed forensic cases. Begin a case by creating an investigation plan that defines the following: goal and scope of the investigation. So what's the goal of this investigation, and what's the scope in terms of what am I going to cover, what am I going to look for? Materials needed, tasks to perform. It's just this giant checklist that I've talked about. You go over, and you eventually become better and better at it. You just, whoop, 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 ready to go, type it out, ready to go. Heck, you print out, even write it up, or off your head, you're like, okay, do this, do this, do this. You will get to that point eventually. Sorry, my nose is a little itchy. You will get to that point eventually. Just practice makes perfect. To approach, you take your approach. The approach you take, depends largely on the types of case you are investigating: corporate, civil, or criminal. Corporate, those are pretty not small, is what I'm trying to say, but in scope, in terms of very focused, because it's just, well, if it's just somebody that worked in all these graphics that I just talked about, graphics. What is someone that's on the graphic design team? You focus on his office or the shared office in that cubicle. If it's something civil, it can involve, I don't know, multitude of things, and that can get bigger. If it's criminal, it'll be somewhat focused, but it can expand to include other things. So that's a little wishy-washy on that one. So let's get into the next slide of this. Follow the basic steps for all digital forensic evidence. For target drives, use recently wiped media that has been reformatted and inspected for viruses. So it's just the thing you clone things onto, right? Make sure it's clean after you're done using it for the previous one. If you don't need it anymore, you're sure of it. You can make an archive of it, save it somewhere else into a different disk, put it somewhere. This one is a working drive, you use it, it's scanned, it's clean, reformat, copy it over. Copy the suspect's drive over. Inventory the hardware on the suspect's computer and note condition of seized computer. I mean, writing down, it was found on. Good working order, yada yada yada. For static acquisition, to move original drive and check date and time values in system CMOS. So if it's on, you check all that. If you're not going to remove the drive with it just running, you would, stop, restart it technically, and do a meta dump data from the RAM and all that. A bootstrap CD or bootstrap drive, and tell it to clone everything before it finishes, wiping everything, if that makes sense. We talked about the Windows UEFI boot drives. I might have you guys make one. I'll think about it, but I'm on the fence about it because you can kind of do some damage with it to yourself if you don't know what you're doing with that tool, and I don't want you guys doing that, so maybe not. Record how you acquire data from the suspect's drive. What did you use? What format is it in RAW? Is it in DD, DDS, DD, FTL? Anything of that. Put all that down. Man, there's more steps to this. Okay, cool. Follow these basic steps for all digital forensics investigations continued. Process drives content methodically and logically. List all folders and files on the image or drive. Yeah, we have to go down and just, you can type it out really. You don't have to write it. I do this like a pen motion, but you're gonna be clickety clacking away. You can have, maybe the program could spit out what's on there for you too. That happens sometimes. Examine contents of all data files in all folders. You would use FTK autopsy, FTK imager, F forensics OS. You can use that. Linux, if you want to feel brave, you can use the Linux version and do stuff like that too. Recover file content for all password protected files. You would be breaking those and copying over and then sifting through it. Identify function of every executable file that doesn't match hash values. You would be comparing values with the hex viewer. Maintain control of all evidence and findings. You just, type I found this time. You go through logs and read it. This was found, this wasn't found, this was found, yada, yada, yada. So you'll have a rolling log of this. You don't write this out half the time unless you really want to. 3 seconds. Okay. Let's move on. So refining and modifying the investigation plan, even if initial plan is sound, at times you may need to deviate from it and follow evidence. Not everything goes according to plan, guys. You got to plan for this. I mean, you may find evidence about fraud and one thing, but it leads you to something even worse, like, I don't know, extorting like the customer base, elderly customer, or whatever. That would expand it and change the whole rhythm of what you were looking for. You go this way, but it's segue out here, and you follow that trail. That's what they're referring to. Knowing the types of data to look for helps you make the best use of your time. You gotta know what you're looking for when you're scanning, and if the case involves something. I don't know. I bring up fraud a lot because it's one of the most common things you see. Um, what if this person stole time from the company, saying they falsified their time records? You will look for stuff pertaining to that, something like that. The key is to start with a plan, but remain flexible in the face of new evidence. Yeah, new things will pop up. You got to work with it and bring it in. So let's talk about autopsy, which we have played with. Can perform forensic analysis on the following files: Microsoft FAT, NTFS, XFAT, UFS1, UFS2, ISO 966C, and YAFFS2, Mac Hierarchical File System Plus and Hierarchical File System X, Linux ext2fs, ext3fs, and ext4fs. Most of the links what you'll see now is 4. You may still see 3 and 2 though. That's why it's still included. Autopsy can analyze data from several sources, including image files from other vendors. That's kind of cool. Autopsy can handle many formats, including RAW. RAW is pretty common though. Expert witness, and virtual machine image files. Oh, I know good virtual image files. That's cool. I might consider making an image file, but I mean, if I make a virtual machine for Windows, they get really big in terms of space. Like it might be up to 26 gigs, 26 gigs, 30 gigs plus. And for you guys to download that just to play with it because I made it for you. I don't want to put you guys through that kind of torture because it'll take forever to download it depending on your connection. Not saying you have a slow connection, and just in terms of doing it, I don't know what I do to lock it, make you break into it. Maybe I don't know. Figure something out. Has an index version of the NIST software, National Software Reference Library. Oh, that's kind of cool. Of MD5 hashes. We can compare every MD5 hash that's in that reference library. That's pretty cool. Sorry for all the yawning. I just had lunch or dinner. Installing NSHRL hashes and autopsy, you need to download the latest version. So which we have, so it's already built in. So here's what that looks like apparently. Hash databases. Collecting hash values in autopsy, create the hash database of known files of interest. This is how you do it. That's pretty cool. I might do a lab on it. I'll think about it. It's pretty simple. Here's what it would spit out. Some of you have seen this already. If you've gone into the labs, I had to compare the hash value for 2 files that you made. You just edited something in it. If you saw my example, I think I put like a mustache on the bulldog or something in the picture and saved it. Then I checked it, or it was a text file. I can't recall at this particular moment, but you saw the hash value change, and that's what would be your tip off that it's not the same as the original. It's just something simple. So, validating forensic data. Ensuring the integrity of data collected is essential for preserving evidence in court. Give me 1 second, I got a phone call. All right, guys, I'm back. Sorry about that. It was a kind of a crucial phone call I needed to take, but back into this. Validating forensic data. Ensure the integrity of data collected is essential for presenting evidence in the court. Pretty straightforward, right? Make sure the data you collected is what you need. It's essential, right? This is what we're talking about. This is what we're doing the case on. This is the data for it. Most forensic tools offer hashing of image files, which you guys may have seen because we have played with that. Using advanced hexadecimal editors to ensure data integrity. I talked about WinHex. That's where you would check that manually, or you could make a script to do it for you. But you have to tell the script to pull from all these databases, and then they would just compare. They could spit out a report of what's changed or what isn't. So, yeah, I won't make that. Don't worry, I don't want you guys to program. You'll go nuts probably trying to do it like I would. It can be hectic depending on the language. I mean, I could see you doing it in Python, but I'm not going to get into it. So moving on. Validating with hexadecimal editors. It's going to be 6 slides of this stuff. So just bear with me, guys. It's 45 slides. So advanced hexadecimal editors offer features not available in traditional forensic tools such as hashing specific files or sectors, hard drive sectors. With the hash value in hand, you can use the forensic tool to search for a suspicious file that might have had its name changed to look like an innocent file. I'll give you an example. When I work, obviously I work at college, that's why I'm wearing a shirt, but it's more for comfort than anything else. And I work because going up ladders and all that jazz. I sometimes work the jail. We have a computer lab in the jail, and inmates, I don't ever call them criminals, inmates will hide files and they hide music. Well, what's the big deal about hiding music? Well, they're not supposed to have music, and we have a network share. It's on its own network. It's no internet to it. It's just a network, a plain old network. And I'm assuming somebody smuggled in a flash drive because that's like all this music in there. I found it once, but they changed the file association of the music from .mp3, .wave, .whatever MP4 to .doc, and then they rename it like what kind of projects have they been doing in there recently that I can think of? What just passed? Valentine's Day. They do like Valentine's Day cards in Publisher, and they'll make it like Valentine's Day card version 3-1 doc. And if you look at it, you'll know what it is. But if you really look at it with like one of these, you'll know it's not a doc file or a publisher file. It's a MP3 file. And it's a WAV file. Like, we can check all that through the server, though. We have a tool in place. But I pull all this and I can just erase it all. But then they hide it. They can put it as hidden. They have some admin privileges. Why I haven't. It's something about read write from what I remember. I didn't build this server. It's just something we have there. And yeah, so that's where this would kind of come into play in a sense. Where you could check stuff like that. Maybe I'll see if I can record some of that down the line if I get a chance to go to the jail in the next week or two, and I'll put it in there for you guys to see. Hopefully I get to go. It's kind of convoluted, but the problem is also I can't take a cell phone in. So I gotta get special permission from the sergeant on duty and all this, explain why I'm doing it. So it's gonna be kind of dicey. I'll see what I can do for you guys. Anyways, with the hash value in hand, you can use a forensic tool to search for a suspicious file that might have had its name changed to look like an innocent file. I talked about that. So WinHex provides MD5 and SHA-1 hashing algorithms. WinHex is pretty powerful. This is what the opening a file in WinHex looks like. Sorry, phone's going on. And an email. Sorry, just dealing with this leftover stuff from my house that I bought. Anyway, so that's what it looks like when you open a file. It's all the hashes and all the hex data. Fun fact: back in the day, this is way back. I'm dating myself with this. If you guys know what a Sega Genesis is, you probably heard of it. They used to have something called a Game Genie that you would put in. It was a cartridge style system. You put that in, then you put the cartridge on the top, and it would spit out hexes that you could see sometimes. And those were the cheat codes back in my day. So this stuff has been around. Hexes in general have been around since the birth of computing, I'd argue, if not longer. But anyway, so it's a lot of mathematical stuff. I won't get into it. Here, let me get my mouse back. Where the heck am I? Sorry, this is over here. Is what when it computes a hash, you ask you which one to compute it in. And this is a hash you can spit out. So that's what it's telling for test underscore hash stocks. I might do something with it. I'll think about it. Don't be that hard of a lab. Let me write that down real quick. Or write up my pen. It's a phone. That's a Sharpie. That's a pen. Found it. Write that down. Oh. Moving on. So, advantage of recording hash values, you can determine whether data has been changed. Remember, hash values change if data has been edited. If not, it stays the same. Blockwise hashing. So, for example, let me roll this back for a second. If you had someone's hard drive and you cloned it, and you compare it to all the known hashes, and you see hashes have changed and what the value of a doc file should be, for example, they'll have like a hash associated with a specific hash, but the hash looks similar, but maybe a digit change here, a digit change there. Would you assume the hash file or the file changed? I would assume yes, because the hash file doesn't match. So you would go through and see what else it is. Anyways, blockwise hashing, the process that builds a data set of hashes of sectors from the original file, and examine sectors on that suspect's drive to see whether any other sectors match. It just checks. That's essentially what they mean. If an individual hash value was found, you have confirmed that the file was stored on the suspect's drive. That's one way to verify it. Really roundabout way of doing it, the way I'm thinking about it. Using hash values to determine, using hash values to discriminate data. Access data has its own hashing database, known file filter, KFF. KFF filters known program files from view and contains hash values for known illegal files. So that's kind of cool. It compares known files, hash values with files on your evidence drive to see whether they contain suspicious data. Now, see, you'd be using a database and be sifting through it for you. It's just comparing, apples to oranges kind of deal. Other digital forensic tools can import the NSLR database and run hash comparisons. Oh, that's good to know. And access data FTK imager. When selecting the experience witness, one smart file format. It's part of a lab. I'll check it out myself to see if it's worth doing, and that might be a lab. Don't worry, guys. I won't make this too painful. So the slide, what, 22? Chapter 9. Plus, I have most of these lab files except for like a couple, I think, from chapters 2 and maybe chapter 4, which technically aren't too relevant now because we're beyond that. That's why I didn't give you some specific ones. Plus, some of the labs are kind of like you won't get much fun hands-on time in terms of like, oh, compare these two hashes. That's something I thought of. Compare with these two programs, see if they're the same, see spit out different results. That's how we validate things. Um, Again, I try to keep this simple, guys, because it's a 6-week course on top of it, and this stuff can get pretty elaborate pretty fast, and I don't want to lose you. Hopefully, I haven't lost you yet. So here's what that looks like. That file, which I think I have, I'll look for it later. Or in the hash value, that's what it would spit out. So addressing data hiding techniques. So data hiding, changing or manipulating a file to conceal information. Techniques, hiding entire partitions. That's doable. I've seen it done. Changing file extensions. I've talked about the basic audio files that they change around the jail that I work at sometimes. Setting file attributes to hidden. That's a pretty common one that even, probably your 10-year-old nephew or an 8-year-old nephew could do. Let me pause it. My dog's barking. It's just the golden retriever. All right, my golden retriever stopped barking. He's trying to defend the house from the mailman, I'm guessing. I don't know. He's a weirdo. He's harmless. Anyways, we're talking about where was I? Changing file extensions. I talked about hidden. I was talking about that. Like maybe even your 8-year-old cousin or nephew could do it. Kids are brave. What can I say? Bit shifting. That one's it happens more than you think. Using encryption. Yeah, that's when you put it through HashShare and it makes a new hash, and you have to like decrypt it with the specific hash key and all that. I'll think about it. Lab, I don't know. It's a little more university level kind of stuff if we do that, because that'll take about, because I could give you guys a file, let's say a zip drive or a RAR file, whatever you want to call it, and I can encrypt it with my own password. But if it's in a different language and you don't have that language set built into the decryptor you guys are running with, and that's what would like really throw you for a loop, and you could spend days running it. So coming from experience, Professor Sully pulled that one on us. So I wouldn't want to be that mean. That he did it as an example, though. So setting up password protection, yeah, that's pretty common. But you can break though with brute force attacks. Sorry, not break force. And my keys don't work. That's just lovely. 20 more slides to go. We're almost there. Hiding files while using the OS. One of the first techniques to hiding data is changing the file extension. I've talked about changing either through doc or XLSS if it's like, well, you want to hide it between a bunch of god damn it, what are they called? Excel files or PowerPoint files. You can change the extension of that. Advanced digital project tools check file header. Compare the file extension to verify that it's correct. If there is a discrepancy, the tool flags the file as possibly altered. That's pretty neat. So it does most of the work for you. You just learn how to drive it. Probably give you some files like that you can play with. There'll be simple things that it'll just say test in there. It won't, poison your computer or anything. I'm not that evil. Another hidden technique: selecting the hidden file attribute file partition. That's one of the most properties. Sorry, not partition. It's one of the most basic things you can do on the planet. You can literally go to Windows and hidden. Literally, put this on screen. Go here. You click on this, and you can tell it to show it or not show it. That's why it's not really that hard to undo. So, anyways, sorry, I just find it funny to consider it one of the advanced hiding techniques. It really isn't. But I mean, most of you taking this course are pretty computer literate. Not saying, not knocking anybody. That's not the point of this. But if you think about the average user, like a secretary, and they did that, and they wouldn't know how they did it. Probably sometimes they click and don't pay attention, and it happens. But if you were to do that, then you don't tell them how you did it, they would be amazed. It's like you're a wizard. Anyways, so let's talk about hiding partitions. By using Windows diskpart remove letter command, you can unassign partition letters, which hides it from view and file explorer. Yeah, that's another basic thing you could do. It's not too hard to do. Let me run diskpart right now. Oh, use the K. I'm doing it just so you can see. That's all I'm doing it. It's me just bringing it up. Don't worry. You write it in here, but I'm not going to do it. It's a command line function. I'm not going to go through it. So I can tell it to remove letter and assign letter. I won't have you guys do this on your machine. I don't want you to break anything. Because what if you hide your C drive? You're boned. Just don't. Don't say I told you to do it. Don't do it. Other just management tools are iMagic, Easy Use Partition Master, and Linux Grand Unifier Bootloader Grub. Yeah, iMagic's still around. Easy Use Partition is more common. I think even Cronus has one now that I can think about. I just don't remember the name. It's pretty interesting stuff to play with. So, To detect whether a partition has been hidden, account for all disk space when examining an evidence drive. Analyze any disk areas containing space you can't account for. Many digital forensic tools can detect and view a hidden partition. That's what that looks like on Windows. Pretty simple to see. Partition hidden. Let me see if mine has one. This is just a GUI based version. Yeah, see. That's what mine looks like. My dog is still barking. That's a terabyte. I have nothing in it. My C drive, those are my other drives. So they're still there. They're all NTFS because they're freaking huge. But nothing's hidden. So you can check yours if you like. For fun, go for it. You just type in disk management into Windows search and it should pull up, create a partition, just click on it and it'll take you to this. Anyways, I'm not doing it to show off, just doing it to show you I don't have anything hidden. So when you scan with autopsy, it will pull stuff like this and see. You guys have seen some of this already in some of the stuff we played with. That's what that looks like. So moving on. Marking block clusters. A data hiding technique used in FAT file systems is placing sensitive or incriminating data in free or slack space on disk partition clusters. Involved using old utilities such as Norton Disk Edit. Wow, sorry, that takes me back. Norton Disk Edit was something that was popular. Oh Lord, late. I don't know, late. That was like mid 90s, like early 2000s. That was around Jesus. Sorry, we moved away from it. So if you can still find a copy of Norton Disk Edit, which you might be able to find, I mean, you could master it, you'd be pretty good with it. But it's got a steep learning curve. Let me pull it up. Let me see if I can find it on Google. I know I'm kind of segueing out of this, guys, and I apologize, but sometimes you just get that curiosity bug, you know? You gotta scratch that itch. Yeah, this is just a forum, so I'm talking about it, but here's what it looks like. Oh, that's a terrible image. Oh, it got better. Sorry, it's highlighted, but it's the big hex editor. Let me go to images. See? So you would have to learn how to sift through that manually versus a tool that would do it for you. You get good at it manually, you get pretty fast at it too. So just something to consider. Just anyways, mark good clusters as bad clusters in the FAT table, so the OS considers them unusable, so it's used to hide things. You can you know where it started what cluster you marked as bad, so the OS will just skip it. Only way they can be accessed from OS is by changing them to good clusters with a disk editor, which would be the same Norton disk editor edit. I call it editor, disk edit, something. Disk editor runs only MS-DOS, which I just showed you, and can access only FAT formatted disk media. Some users use a low-level encryption program that changes the order of binary data, makes altered data unreadable to secure a file. Users run an assembler program, also called a macro, to scramble bits. Run another program to restore the scrambler bits to their original order. Bit shifting, which we mentioned earlier, changes data from readable code to data that looks like binary executable code. WinHex and Hex Workshop includes a feature for shifting bits. That's what that looks like. So, yeah, see, that's where you modify it. You shift the bits and numbers, zeros and ones around. And that would be after the shift. Let me see, go back a slide. Yeah, see, that says 54. It's really hard to see, guys. I'm sorry. And that says, yeah, see, it shifted it left to A. Yeah, change it. Excuse me. So stenography, more about stenography. Oh boy. Comes from the Greek word hidden writing. Hiding messages in such a way that only the intended recipient knows the message is there. Everybody talked about shifting them over from 1 to 0 is now A and B is now 1 and all that. That's where I was kind of using that as a stenography reference. It's something simple. Anyways, stick analysis terms for detecting and analyzing stenographic files. Digital watermarking developed as a way to protect file ownership, usually not visible when used for stenography. A way to hide data is to use stenography tools. Many are freeware or shareware. So if it's freeware, shareware, might run on Linux too if I think about it. Insert information into a variety of files. If you encrypt the plain text file with PGP and insert the encrypted text into a stenograph file, cracking the encrypted message is extremely difficult. Stenograph methods. Stego only attack, known cover attack, known message attack, chosen stego attack, chosen message attack. Interesting. What slide is this? 38. I'm writing it down for me because I want to look more into these. I find them interesting. Yeah, I know. I'm a weirdo. I like looking up stuff too. Fun. Examining encrypted files. To decode an encrypted file, users apply a password or passphrase. Many encryption programs use a technique called key escrow, designed to recover encrypted data if users forget their passphrases or if the user's key is corrupted after a system failure. Key sizes are 128 bits, 496 bits. Make breaking them nearly impossible with current technology. It was about 3 years ago. Maybe things have changed. Who knows? Well, 4 years ago now, right? We're 2023. These slides are from 2019, guys, so things have changed. Password cracking tools are available for handling password protected data or systems. Some are integrated into digital forensic tools, standalone tools, LastBit, Access Data, PRTK, OffoCrack, John the Ripper. Wow, John the Ripper. It's still around. It's been around for years, since like 2000-ish. But Password's been around for a long time too. Brute force attacks. You already mentioned this. Use every possible letter, number, and character found on a keyboard. This method can require a lot of time and processing power. It's pretty labor intensive for a computer. Dictionary attack. Uses common words found in the dictionary and tries them as passwords. Most use a variety of languages. With many programs, you can build profiles of a suspect to help determine his or her password. 1 second. Many password protected operating systems, OSSs, I say operating systems, and applications store passwords in the form of MD5 or SHA hash values. A brute force attack requires converting a dictionary password from plain text to a hash value. Requires additional CPU cycle time. And these keys are driving me nuts. 3 more slides. Rainbow table. It found containing the hash values for every possible password that can be generated from a computer's keyboard. No conversion necessary, so it's faster than a brute force dictionary attack. So it will reference the rainbow table hash values. Salting passwords. Dang, that's something I haven't heard of quite some time. Alters hash values and makes cracking passwords more difficult. So here's a summary, guys. We're there, 2 slides, and you're home free for the day for this lecture. Examining and analyzing digital evidence depends on the nature of the investigation and the amount of data to process. General procedures: wipe and prepare target drives, so the ones you use for storage. Document all hardware components on the suspect's computer. Check date and time values of the suspect's computer's CMOS. Acquire data and document steps. List all folders and files. Attempt to open password protected files. Determine function of executable files and document steps. Advanced digital forensic tools have features such as indexing text data, making word search faster, which you've seen when you search in FTK after type in, what was it? The one where brought up the palm tree ones I'm thinking about. I think it was the guy's name. And that's why I was able to find something. A critical aspect of digital forensics is validating digital evidence. Ensure the integrity of data you collect is essential for presenting evidence in court. Data hiding involves changing or manipulating a file to conceal information. 3 to recover passwords: dictionary attacks, brute force attacks, and rainbow tables. So that's it for this one, guys. Good luck on the midterm. Message me if you have any questions. I will catch you in the next one. See you in labs.